What makes you truly happy?
Game!
Game? Animal? I'm over here.
Hi!
Hi, Animal.
Hi! Drum!
Animal?
Drum!
When I say a word,
Yeah.
if it reminds you of something,
Yeah.
you say it.
Oh, yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Animal?
Yeah!
And then you're going to say the first thing that comes into your head.
Hi!
Hi.
Drum!
Okay. Okay.
Drum!
Let's talk about something else.
Bunny rabbit.
You like bunny rabbits?
Like bunny rabbit. Like bunny rabbit.
Do you have a bunny rabbit?
No, don't have bunny rabbit.
Would you like a bunny rabbit?
Like bunny rabbit.
A big bunny rabbit?
Small bunny rabbit.
A small bunny rabbit?
Please. Animals like drinking! We're drinking. Cheers. One more. You hear that song? Pretty good for the oil tree. Only variation coming. Fit your lifestyle. It's Friday night, people! Welcome back to the basement, season 3. I am thoroughly excited. Got some new ideas, some new cocktails, just generally new outlook for everybody. Let me tell you, there is nothing like getting in the lab and just coming up with ideas. Whatever passions you have out there, I don't care what it is, whatever passions. You know, for me, football, cocktails, nerd stuff, whatever passion you have, embrace it and find a way to embrace it as often as possible. I'm MasterShake. I am your favorite bartender, your local neighborhood bartender, the guy in the basement, the guy bringing you the cocktails on Friday nights, and you are the best audience in the world. I hope everybody's ready. I got some great ideas for you tonight. One big change, season 3. We're going to go through a brewery tour this year. Season 1, I was like, here are some brews you've never heard of. Season 2, mix it up and bring in some domestics, some stuff that I had never tried before and taste it live. This time it's brewery tours, okay? every Friday I'm going to have a 6-pack of beer from a different brewery. One that even if I don't know it very well, I'll research for you. I'll let you know some information about it. And I'll hopefully catch your attention a little bit about, some quality places here in Michigan or elsewhere for you to check out. Okay. Let's see what we got in the comments real quick before we get to the beer. I do look like an Irishman. I do. We got, oh man, there is so much more. There was a complete redesign of the basement in between season 2 and season 3. Still got the docking poster though, of course. Still got the docking poster, but I got everything up over here. I got the lovely Scene Snobs stickers. Arcane Carolinas, I met those guys. Got a sticker up here. I met those guys at convention last year. They were great. Check them out. It's a great podcast. Arcane Carolinas. They look into all kinds of stuff, especially cryptids. So if you love the cryptid myths and everything like that, check them out. I got all my posters up. I got my display figurines over here, and I got a case for them now. Of course, the wonderful painting my brother got me. But, we're representing horror. All things horror. So many cocktails, especially first season, were horror-themed. Love horror. Can't get enough of it. Today's Lord of the Rings, so I got my display on. I got my record recommendations over here. So if you recognize them, give them a shout out. But it's all Lord of the Rings. That's it. That's tonight. So super excited. We got new shelf for sure. The basement is cleaner, Ward, but yours is more welcoming. I would argue that. Yeah, I love being back. I love being back with you guys. Let's get to what you guys came here for. Okay. First of all, beers. I do have my second camera down here, so I'm going to turn to it in different times. First up, the information about the brewery we're doing this Friday. Shorts Brewery, okay, Bel Air, Michigan. One of my favorite breweries. I've been there with friends a lot. They have some of my favorite beers that I featured on the show. Shorts is a great location to visit. I was just up there recently. Let me tell you, the food's good and the beer's better. Not to mention, it's a wonderful drive. If you make it up there in the fall, you can see all the colors, like all the trees changing colors, everything like that. In the summer, it's gorgeous. All the tourists are up there during the summer. In the winter, there are all those winter sports that you want. I mean, Bel Air is a nice destination for anybody to visit, okay? It also has some really cool features that have changed over the past 13 years since I discovered Shorts Brewery up there. There's Be Well Meadery that's across the street. There's a really, really cool bed and breakfast to stay at called the Stonewaters Inn, where I've stayed myself. And supposedly, ladies and gentlemen, at the Stonewaters Inn, there is a haunted guest room. And so if you ask for the haunted guest room, I don't know, maybe somebody comes visit you. But the main attraction is Shorts, and they have a vast draft list. Every time I've been there, well over 20 beers on draft, and every single one of them is a plus beer. Guaranteed. So I have 5 of their mainstays and one really aggressive beer that I'm going to pick. Okay. The first up, one of my favorite brews there, and I've had it before on the show, Huma Lupa Licious, named after, the actual, plants that make up beer. Okay. So this is known as an Imperial IPA. People have said it's too bitter for an IPA. I disagree. I really like this IPA. I think it's very, very good. Full flavored. When I did the taste test on the show, I actually preferred Two Hearted, which really surprised me. But the label for this has changed. Let me add in the second camera here. All right. So the label for this has changed. You got right here. They did a complete redesign. And you can see hops right there. Nice little logo. And they always have little stories on the back here. But coming in at, 7.7% is what makes it Imperial. High ABV, a lot of flavor, a lot of taste. Highly recommend. Definitely a plus beer. Second up, this is a good fall or winter beer. I don't particularly like to drink Bounds in the summer or the spring personally, but I mean, you do, you remember. It's all about fitting, as I say in the intro, your lifestyle. So Bel Air Brown is a great brown ale, and it obviously references the town that they're from and all that stuff. This is one of Mrs. Shake's favorite beers, for what it's worth. And the logo, I mean, there's nothing really to write home about. But you can see down here, kind of has like your average Michigan house, I'd say. I think it's a reference to something up there in Bel Air. It looks like that's a clock tower right there, but that is not, a reference to Back to the Future. Heavy brown though. This is 7%. So they do have an imperial version too that is 11.5%. I highly recommend checking it out. Next up, Simple Beer. I'm going to leave the camera up. This is just easier. Next up, Shorts Locals Light. This is obviously for your domestic drinker. They have it on tap there for anybody that if you like, Bud Light, Budweiser, Miller Lite, whatever you're talking about, okay? Whichever one it is, this is their version on tap that they have here. It's an American lager, very crushable, very good in the summer, but people drink it year round. I like to have at least a 6-pack on the lake every summer. You can see it's got the nice little Michigan sunset down here. But it just says on the label, beer in its simplest form. It says so right here. Okay. And I agree. It's beer in its simplest form. I highly recommend it as a lager, full flavored, all of it. During the winter, they always have a Pilsner series called Winter Pils. Highly recommend it. It's an Imperial Pilsner. I forgot to tell you too, with Locals Light, it's coming in at 5.2%. It's not too heavy. Very crushable, like I said. But Winter Pils, okay? Imperial Pilsner. But more importantly, this beer is made with all Michigan ingredients. And got to represent the mitten. And the label is always really cool to look at. Changes a little bit every year, but this Winter Pilsner is good. It's got the cardinal here, pine cones, got a little short story there. And it is coming in at, they don't have the label on there. I got to remember. The Winter Pils comes in at 5%, if I remember right. So very crushable as well. Delicious, delicious beer. I love it. I usually get a bunch during the winter. It's good beer. I'm going to try to pick one aggressive beer from each brewery every Friday. This week I chose one that I remember when my brother was working at his uncle's beer store, he mentioned. And so I sought it out a long time ago. And for the longest time, Shorts only had it on tap at the location. If you're a Bloody Mary fan, but you also like beer, this is a good one. Truthfully, it tastes like, if you know about different Mexican cocktails, this tastes like a michelada. Okay, if you've ever drank one of those. But they call it their bloody beer. And you can see on there, they got all these different references to it's bloody, it's, that type of stuff. But really, it's a Bloody Mary beer. That's the reference, okay? All the different ingredients on here, they got beer brewed with Roma tomatoes, black peppercorn, celery seed, horseradish, and dill. So, I mean, it's very much so. ABV-wise, not coming in very heavy. See, 4.8. Not heavy at all, but it's got a really cool label on it. I like the little axe right there. And it's always a beer that, in my opinion, if you want something different, just because you want something different, it fits the bill. It's not your standard beer, and so that's why I chose it. I think those are 6 high-quality beers you can get from Shorts. The first 5, right now, the first 5 are on tap. They are guaranteed. The first 4 are on tap year-round. And then the Bloody Beer is a special that they have on once a year. Okay? It's basically till it sells out like anything else that's a special tap. So check it out. I give each one of these beers 5 stars, man. That's why I picked them. They're good beers, all plus beers. Check it out. All right, so let's see. Tim gives a shout out to Local Light. He knows that's a golfing beer. He loves it. Got Miss Shake, whole can of heartburn. Oh, Ross Clayton. Chase it with a Pepsid martini. Good advice. Love it. So I really say this, like, beer is a passion, but cocktails always come above it. When I discovered, and part of the show in the first place is really that, like, you can make this stuff at home too. You just need the ingredients. Don't be afraid, and I always say this, like, you know, as often as I can on the show, to play with any different kinds of ingredients that you want to in any cocktail, any recipe, or anything like that that I put out there. You make it fit for you. If you don't like how boozy something is, put some fruit juice in it. You know, don't be afraid to top it off with some tonic water or some soda water, things like that. If it's not boozy enough, take some ingredients out. Make it more booze forward. Like, play with the recipes, because that's how I found my passion for it. It's a lot like chemistry. If you really get into chemistry, mixology is chemistry. That's what it is. So check out these recipes and then do your version. This is just the MasterShake version, okay? Tonight's recipe comes from what's called a French green dragon, okay? For all intents and purposes, what it really is a martini. But martinis don't usually have fruit juice in them. So you have a martini that's based around Cavassier, which is a cognac, okay? You know, a lot of flavor in it, I'll tell you that. It's not like whiskey, okay? Whiskey can absorb, as long as it's not an overproof whiskey or an overdone whiskey, whiskey can absorb a lot of flavors. I've stayed away from cognac cocktails on the show because they're difficult, and I couldn't find the exact mixture that's necessary to pair up or match with these things. But I found this one in a book that I got for a gift, and shout out to, you know, the Scene Snobs. There's a gift from the Scene Snobs for Christmas. Thank you very much. Cognac pairs really well with different kinds of root flavors. Okay? And in particular, when you take some of these, like, often they're called Benedictine liqueurs, okay? When you take some of these and you mix them with something like a cognac or even a whiskey, and sometimes a rum, especially like a really aged rum, it will absorb some of those root flavors and hide some of the more the less delicious parts of these liquors, okay? So even though I don't particularly care for cognac usually, I really like this cocktail tonight. I'd say give it 4 out of 5 stars, okay? It's not perfect. I mean, I'm not really a huge martini guy anyway. Like, I really just prefer, if I'm going to drink straight liquor, I'm going to drink whiskey. But it has a great flavor profile, and the citrus really does cut the cognac, so to speak. So as I introduce the ingredients, like, if you want to mix along at home, I'm going to change the recipe a little bit from what I put online. I needed a double batch because I have slightly bigger glasses. Okay, my dragon glasses for martinis, they're about 2.5 ounces larger than your average martini glass. So I had to change the recipe a little bit. This is a double batch of it. But need your martini glass. Okay. You need a mixing glass. Now we're going to do this, James Bond style, shaken, not stirred. Okay. In large part because it has fruit juice. You want to shake fruit juice. When he says that on the show, he says shaken, not stirred. Martinis actually shaken without like any other ingredients in them are not better that way. You want them in a mixing glass. By shaking it, you're actually frothing elements that are in there that you don't want froth. But fruit juice, you need to actually kind of like pound into the cocktail. So this is something that you shake, not stir. All right. We got shaker, like I said, your cognac, lemon. That's our fruit juice for today. Angostura bitters. Got my bitters down here. Jig. Peeled grape. I pre-peeled it. It's in a you might be like, why is it in this weird case? They're very, very bad for dogs. And so I'm being extra careful with the grapes today to make sure that Shake Dog doesn't accidentally eat one. Strainer, of course. Now, most of the time I talk about, wink, wink, tight strains around here. You want a wink, wink, loose strain today. Okay. So I have my, and I'll turn on the other camera real quick so you can see. Much looser than normal. The gap in there is going to allow little chunks of ice, and it goes with the theme of the cocktail, so to speak, as you're going to see. Okay. The theme is going to be the important part of it. We need a knife, and this is just for our lemon today. Bar spoon. Don't say it yet. Don't you say it yet. You got to wait till I get the ice out. Press. Simple syrup. And as always, make your own. As Mr. Shake can attest to, I was making mine today because I didn't realize I ran out. Now, the liquor of choice in this is called chartreuse. And I have a liquor guy. I have a guy that I text when I'm trying to find something that isn't easy to find. And right now there's a huge shortage on chartreuse. Okay. It's a green liquor. In a way, it's really flavorful, and it has 130 different spices and roots in it. Well, my liquor guy kind of sold me down the river. I ordered it from him, and then when I got to Megabev, he had told me he sold it to somebody else, which is disappointing. But research, right? Always do your research. You could use either green or yellow chartreuse in this. There are substitutions, like always, for these flavors. Our first substitution, my French is terrible. Véritablement, je ne pas les chamois. Liqueur d'Olin. Looks like this. Okay. This is a substitute for the green chartreuse. Okay. And I tasted, I did a cocktail to get ready for today. I tasted it. Wonderful. Now, the one I didn't taste, but is still really good. This is called Strega. It is a substitute for yellow chartreuse. Okay. This apparently is a really good substitute for yellow chartreuse. I'm going to do the yellow version for the show because I already did the green version. It was delicious. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm excited to try this and tell you what I rate it. So I'm doing yellow chartreuse, but if you have the green chartreuse, go ahead. Now, we need to start with the cheapest ingredient, like always, like every good bartender, okay? So I'm going to get my ice out. You get your ice out. Put your bar apron on, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's got to put your bar apron on. You don't want to get your friendship shirt all dirty. And I will turn on the other camera so that way you guys can see me make this. Okay? Back it up a little bit. Adja. All right. So, you see all my ingredients here. I got my lovely, lovely skewer, and then my press and everything like that. Now, ice. As always, 1 uncracked cube, 1 cracked cube. Got my handy dandy tote. Ice is just waiting in there. Okay. 1 uncracked cube. And now's the time to say it, ladies and gentlemen. Say it with me. Spank that ice. And always, thank you, Katie, because you're the best. Give it 3 good cracks. Drop it in. Drop in your uncracked cube. Now, we go from cheapest to non-cheapest, right? So first up would be our simple syrup. You need, if you're doing a double batch, 1 full ounce of simple syrup in this cocktail. So I will measure it out, pour it in, 1 full ounce. Now, we need 1.5 ounces if you're doing the double batch of our lemon juice. And because lemons, as always, are super variable, okay, always so annoyingly variable. And I know my sister-in-law got a laugh out of that. We're going to measure it out because I don't want it. It's not like 1 lemon. Okay. We're going to measure it out. We want actual ingredients. So our first one came to just under 1 ounce. We want to get from our second one at least another 0.75 ounces. So let's see what we get here. I'm kind of eyeballing it a little bit. And there we go. Next up, cheapest ingredient. We got our simple syrup, our lemon juice. Would probably be the Courvoisier. Okay. You need, if you're doing a double batch, 2 ounces of Courvoisier. 1. There's always a couple extra splashes that end up in there. 2. 2 ounces of Courvoisier. Set that over here. We're doing the yellow. Okay, check this label out. It's really cool. The Strega, Liqueur Strega. You need 1.25 ounces of your chartreuse. So I'm going to put 1 ounce in. And then I'm going to put my 0.5 in. There we go. Or 0.25, sorry. I poured 0.25 and said 0.5. Now, like always, you got to shake it like it matters. You might be like, why am I not adding the bitters in yet? Calm down, people. Calm down. You'll see why the bitters aren't in yet. Nice seal. You want a nice seal on it? Give it a nice tap. I'd say you'd want to get it to like not uncomfortable in your hands, but because this is a variation really on a martini, you do want it really cold. Because once it goes in the glass, that's it. No ice, right? Now, I mentioned this earlier. We want a loose strain with this one. Loose, okay? That's why I pointed this out. Got my lovely right here. Now, this is a brighter color than the one that I posted online, and that's okay because it's yellow instead of green, okay? I'm really excited. The aroma, like the aromatics of the yellow, are different than the green. So I'm pretty excited about this. You need your skewer, and you need your peeled grape because the name of this lovely cocktail, and I said it's Lord of the Rings themed, Sauron's Watching Eye. Been on a big Lord of the Rings kick lately. I'm going to skewer it, and you see, I peeled the grape, except the top and the bottom. I'm going to skewer it so that way the red part is facing out like this. And then it sits on top of the drink. And this is where your bitters come in. Now it's a double batch, okay? Double batch. So I'm going to do 4 dashes, but if you're doing a normal size martini, you would have 2 dashes in there, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. And you want to do it right on top of the grape. It kind of turns in a little bit more reddish color. And what you end up with is this visually distinct Lord of the Rings themed. There it is. Sauron's Watching Eye, just like it's on top of the tower in the film. Pretty good, right? See the nice chunks of ice? Kind of gives that little fire. Very visual drink, which you guys know I really love to make. Now, the important test. Is the yellow better than the green? Because I hope I don't regret making the yellow instead of the green. Mr. Shake can attest this. The green was pretty good. All right. So, here we go. Ooh, that's better. The yellow is better. I give it a 5. So the problem with the green was a latent bitterness that was left over from all of the different flavors that were in the green. There's no bitterness at all. You don't even get it. Like, so the best part about this, how it blended everything like this, this is not overpowering. It's visually distinct. That's all about it. Like in this case, even though it's aromatic and it does, you can smell it, the bitter from the actual bitters doesn't make it in. There's no smokiness. Okay. And it's a brighter, if that makes sense, a brighter flavor than the green. If you're going to make this drink, the Green Dragon, I recommend you use the yellow chartreuse and not the green chartreuse. I'm going to take another drink now. Oh, that's great. That's a good drink. 5 out of 5 on that one. I gave the green one a 4 out of 5. 5 out of 5 on that one. Let's see if we got this here. Oh, I always have to. Hana, you always have to sing the Dream Warriors song, and Don Dokken, who is the lead singer of the band, loves singing it. Gotta love it. Gotta spank that ice. Everybody said it good. Callie, good to see you. Love you guys checking in. It is. And Darian, they're handmade here in Michigan. It's a company that always comes to I do believe it's Charlotte glass blowing competition. Highly recommend it. And I'm not going to show you. Ooh, I can show you though. So you just proof that I made one earlier. Let me turn on the other camera. Right here, they each have their own unique icon on the back that looks like a dragon, and each dragon is different. It's super cool. Super cool. The best part is about this glass too. There's a gap between your hand and the drink, and so martinis last longer. Ward says it's awesome. Taxman Tim's out there making jokes. Gotta love it. The Shake says it's boozy as fuck. The scale 5 is the highest. Come on, 5's always the highest. The green is lime and citrus base. Yellow is honey and anise base. Wonderful. I don't know necessarily about the replacements or not, but I tried to find more about it, and they were so. Chartreuse is very secretive about the recipe, and that's part of the reason there's a shortage right now. Nobody has copied it. Like I said, these have 20 to 30 different kinds of flavoring in them. Chartreuse has 140. Okay. 10 is not the highest. Don't give me that crap. 10 is the highest. So if you dig it, try it. Let me know. If you like the cocktail, if you try it out, just send me a message, whatever, on any social media platform. I'm streaming this live on 80 billion different versions of them. But my third favorite part of the show is coming up. You guys know I always like to end with a salute to you guys, the people who watch the show, the people who tune in. And since it is, the premiere of season 3, I'm going to do absinthe, and not just any absinthe. That's right, 138 proof absinthe, ladies and gentlemen. If you're playing the home game, go ahead and pour yourself a shot. I am gonna do mine inside of here because I need to cut the absinthe with a little bit of sugar. It's not that I'm getting old, but I'm getting old. So I'm gonna put a splash of sugar in there for my shot. I'm going to measure out my shot because 138 proof is no joke. I can find my jig. I don't know. Oh, there it is. All right. Next week, the brewery is going to be Founders. And the cocktail, I think I haven't done Star Trek in a long time. I think next week's cocktail is going to be Star Trek based. I'm a big fan of Star Trek. Love Star Trek. In the meantime, I love coming here, doing this with all of you. I love kicking off a Friday night. Right after this show, we'll segue immediately into one of my favorite things. We do Mick at Night on Friday nights, where all things absurd. all topics. Nothing is off the table. Everything from, movies and music to sometimes we even get into political ideologies and, the background behind things. We hit a lot of topics. Tune in if you're interested. Join in the comments like always. We always Mick is the DJ of that show, the Scene Snobs. I always got to give the Scene Snobs a shout out for hosting me, hosting my show, hosting Betting Bros. Tomorrow, Betting Bros will be live. I can't remember if it was noon or 1, but Taxman Tim's in the if you prefer math, he's in the comments so he can tell everybody. I'll be on that show too, as my alter ego Smash, and we'll tell you how to bet this weekend's football playoff games. I got all of the games right last week, but one, and did not make any money off them because I was dumb and parlayed them instead of betting them individually. Couple other shout outs. I love giving a shout out to the Monster Movie Happy Hour, another great podcast that I've listened to now for 4 years. They do a great job, and they always pair it with a cocktail as well. Check them out. Sturdy, got it. Hardest working man in show business, man. He should be on the show tonight as well. Check out all of Sturdy's material. You can find it on YouTube. My favorite horror with Sir Sturdy. Check out the Three Geeks podcast. That's another group of guys that I really love joining in on, and I've made a drink before on their show. They're a great group of guys, and they have a lot of good topics that you can tune into. So let's do. I know we'll do this. Salute today. We'll do my favorite Latino salute. Okay. Arriba, abajo, al centro, adentro. Salud. Ooh, that 138 really kicks in. Well, I've had a great time. I hope you've had a great time, or at least a moderately entertaining time. I'm going to pull Mick on right now to take over for me while I clean up the studio, and then I'll be back on for Mick at night. I've been the MasterShake, your favorite neighborhood bartender. You've been the greatest people that I know. See you next week.
What's going on, guys? That's right. What was formerly known as
at night. It's such a delight. Hey, everybody, it's Mick at night. Filmed live in front of a studio audience.
Well,
is now the Outcasts. That's right. Our little band of merry podcasters are getting together. We're the ones on the outside trying to get in, and we're here to play. We are the Outcasts. What's going on, everybody? We're going to wait for Dan to join back up. Thank you so much for joining in. As you know, I'm Cousin Gary, aka Detroit. That's right. I always do that to make fun of Dan and Tim because I love them so much. But Michigan, it's cold. I don't know about all this. Somebody wants to tell me something. So we're going to get started tonight. We have a fun time planned. We're going to spin the wheel. I got some topics to throw out there. Once Dan jumps in, I'm going to have some fun picking on him a little bit about some stuff, and actually picking his brain a little bit, because I'm going to tell you what, I want to start making some bets. The Betting Bros has been one of my favorite shows on this channel for a while, and I absolutely adore them. And you guys should check them out. They're awesome together. Math and Smash are always giving awesome odds, and I've been keeping track on how they're doing because I want to start betting and I'm learning about it. Never really did sports betting before. So I think I'm going to, if I can round them up and get some advice from them, I want to start doing that as well. But you should too. NFL season's almost over, but they're going to be playing it all the way to the end. Then they'll be back for the draft and they'll be back next season. And maybe we can coax them in for some fun stuff too. But yeah, that's what it's all about here on the Scene Snobs. We're having a good time. We can get into it. This type of night is more about kind of hanging out. You can throw out topics too. We have the Wheel of Absurdity to put out. It's a lot of fun. So if you guys have any topics you want to talk about, anything new that's been kind of kicking along, let me know. Let's talk about it. I would love to see and talk and see what's going on. All right. But for now, let me pull up the Wheel of Absurdity and we'll spin for the first topic. All right, here we go. And let's rock and roll. And lucky number 9. All right. Let's do it. Do it to it. All right. Tim, Dan, you ready?
What up,
There it
Dom?
is. What's going on, buddy? So I'm about to read off the first topic of the evening. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, number 9. Let's get into it. What if historical movies were 100% accurate? I love this friggin' topic, and I'm so glad you came in at the right time for this. I've never been more excited right now.
I don't think people want. I don't think people want them to be historically accurate. How about that? And the older I get, the more I don't want it to be historically accurate.
Well, I definitely get that. But what? Okay. What in that sense then? What is something that you think is worthy of having a movie made about it that you can be 100% accurate in telling?
That's harder. So that's the other problem is that like oh my god. So what I think that films where films go wrong when they're telling, especially this as historical stories, is they have a specific, I don't want to say agenda because that word is so loaded. Okay. Agenda is loaded, right? I'm not saying agenda in the terms of how people are using it in 2024. Okay. Yeah. By agenda, I mean this. History is very much so written by the victors. Okay. And it's been tainted. Whatever you think is accurate in terms of history is probably not as accurate as what you think it is. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's just not. And so the spins that are put on it, what it is, victors go the spoils, whatever you want to say. Now, I will say this. One of the most accurate scenes I've ever seen, though, was in Gladiator.
Which one?
So,
the whole movie?
The opening scene.
Oh, okay.
The opening scene, what people don't understand about military size when they're studying history is after the Roman Empire, you don't see armies of that caliber and quality until Napoleon. Why? They're not unified enough. The Roman Empire was so unified and so large. And so when you see that whole, they go down the path, they show all the different soldiers, they show the tech, all that stuff. That's really accurate. I loved that. I loved how they were telling that story until they started getting into the like.
Can I ask you something about that actually? That I've always kind of wondered about.
How often I think about the Roman Empire? Daily.
No. But actually, now that we are like, yeah, right. Because now I do think about this, and you brought it up, and you're the perfect person to ask. The Roman Empire lasted how long?
It depends on what you. So,
for you, what do you think?
You have essentially a 250-year time where you would call it the Roman Empire. And that's basically the period about 100 years before the Common Era to 200 CE. That really is what when people think of the Roman Empire, that's the time period they're thinking about.
Okay.
Because once you get to about 200 CE, you start seeing people challenging what Rome is, and both within and without. And as you get later into that time period and you get more, especially the rise of Christianity, you have the Great Schism taking place, and they still call themselves the Holy Roman Empire, but it wasn't holy, it wasn't Roman, and it kind of wasn't an empire.
Yeah.
But yeah, so about 250, 300 years is really what you're talking about when I'm referencing right now the Roman Empire. That's what it is.
Well, in a situation like that, then that's sort of my question. Then 300 years of that uniformed of a empire. How did it sustain itself for so long?
Taxes. I mean, so it sounds simple, but like people will talk about a lot of different things, but it's money. They conscripted and persecuted people. That was a big part of it. to fill their coffers, and then their citizens were taxed on a lot of different things. Everybody talks about their roads, right? The Roman Empire had so many technological advances, whether you talk about their aqueducts, indoor plumbing. The Romans had indoor plumbing. Isn't that crazy? Now, if you're wealthy, I mean, that's it. Like, if you're
wasn't
wealthy.
it the lead in the pipes that sort of for the drinking water that sort of helped?
Well, I mean, there are theories, yeah, but
I mean, that's a pretty good theory, though.
I mean,
what would you think?
What's crazy, like, if you look at have you ever heard of the Roman arches?
No.
So they made their arches without cement. They don't have cement, and they have some of the strongest arches ever developed because they were so good at mathematics. Anyway, so like this time period, what you're talking about in terms of Rome, they profited off the back of people they subjugated, and it's been the case for every empire in history. Whether you're talking about, you want to talk about the Greeks, you want to talk about the Romans. Somebody mentioned the Ottoman Empire in there. Yeah, Tim. So Tim says the Holy Roman Empire, very German. Yeah, because it had nothing to do with Italy at all. Like it's called Holy Roman Empire, and it turned during basically around 800 CE to about 1200 CE. You have this idea of the Holy Roman Empire that kind of became, I don't know, this seat of power briefly for Europe, but it wasn't Roman at all. Like 0%.
No, I gotta disagree with you, Tim. If you want to be 100% accurate, it was the werewolves that were the biggest issues back in the Victorian era.
Oh my gosh. They had to Michigan Dogman. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a werewolf.
I think you're talking about Michigan Dogman.
Listen. I actually thought about a new segment I'd like to start with Dan, and that is, I'm going to throw out a conspiracy theory at you, and I want you to bat it down.
And they just like. So anybody that's heard me talk about this stuff before, like, if people stop to think for a second, the level of effort that would have to go into a conspiracy, right? Like an actual conspiracy, like the level of effort, like we'll take the moon landing.
Yeah, I know.
Think about what it would take to push that conspiracy, and then stop to look at the people around you. Just take a brief look at the people you work with.
Birds aren't fucking real, man. All hell talk.
Like it's. I say this constantly, like people like everybody's dumb, and then they'll come up with a wild ass conspiracy. This is a real conspiracy that back in 2016, my students, Scott's really smart too. Scott's smarter than me, way smarter than I am.
Get him on. Explain these things to me. I'm not that smart.
In 2016, I had a student who legitimately believed that President Obama controlled the weather through wind farms. That wind farms control the weather. That's the level of people. So like, and in the next sentence, they're like, everybody's dumb. So if everybody's dumb, why do you believe in a conspiracy? Because it takes smart people to create a conspiracy. If you wanted to create a grand conspiracy, you'd have to have brilliant, well-motivated, not lazy people.
Yeah.
And
well,
what
understand
is government made of? Dumb, lazy people. Like,
I know it really is. But okay, so let me ask you this though, and I'm not like most of my conspiracies are, my conspiracy theories are kind of like, more in the logical side of like, yeah, of course the government's doing that. They're not like bugging on you, but they are, like stuff like that. Like the stuff like it's pretty goddamn obvious, but what am I gonna do? Yeah, whatever. The government, I'm like the easiest one. It's like we're taking over. You didn't already?
Yeah, what took so long?
I was like,
that's the other part. Like, you think these people have a plan? They can't even budget.
I know. First, every fucking time I watched the movie Dave, because the only thing I was ever fucking really like talented at in film industry was my budgets, man. My budgets were tight. I could get them there. And
here we are talking about loose and tight again. I thought I gave that up about 15 minutes ago.
Oh, sweat. I want to get into that in a second. My letterbox has been fucking with me.
Wow.
So, because I've been not what we talked about earlier, but like movie wise, kind of transfer over to that real quick.
Yeah, like I said, I warned everybody. I said like we get
we get into it.
Yeah. So
But
I mean, I'm ready for whatever topic.
Radar had a good topic too that we'll get to afterwards because I have a good answer for that. But this one, so my letterboxd, I'm going through and I'm going by year, and I'm adding every movie I've seen from that year. Man, the first 40 years, like 1980 to like 43 years, to 2024, stacked. Well, not 2024, but 2023, stacked. Like usually over 100 or like at like 98, 99. Now, thousands of movies come out a year, of all kinds, and I'm not going to see everything, but I will tell you this. It's dwindling hard in the 70s.
Oh.
I think the most amount of movies I watched from one year in the 70s was like 43. But when I say that, I'm telling you, Dan, there's not much else I really want to say. So I urge everybody to do this.
What movies from the 70s have I really promoted? That because I thought about this earlier when you said this, and like, so Alien is 1979. Man.
So
wasn't Mad Max the first Mad Max 1979?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mad Max, but it's only 79. That's barely in the 70s, right?
It's so odd, man. I'm telling you, because I thought the 70s, because I thought, honestly, like being on 100 movies a year from that year.
Clockwork Orange, I never want to see that again.
No, I don't either. But like, look at this, like 1971. Well, I'm not finished with that. I'm still going through, but so 72, 27 films. And I went through like 1,000 films. I'm like, I'm not going through all 3,000. He's like, because it's by popularity. It's not going to get any better.
He's right. Halloween 79.
Yep.
Oh, 73. So Darian, if you want to know where Halloween came from, you got to watch 1973's Black Christmas.
Yep.
That is the origin point. We had a conversation in our Discord about it. And I have good time to plug the Discord, I guess, Mick.
Yeah.
If you want to join the SnobNation, Mick will put up the link.
It's the Snob Society now.
Snob Society. You want to join the Snob Society? Mick will put the link up. We were talking about what is more influential in horror. Psycho, was that 63, Mick? You know better than I do.
60. It's 1960.
60. Okay, so Psycho, 1960, or 1973's Black Christmas. And it was like give and take, but like, here's the thing: is Halloween gets so much credit, but if you like Halloween, the original John Carpenter's Halloween, you have to understand that it is the first true Hollywood sterilized version of horror. You got to go back to 1973's Black Christmas if you want to see where that movie came from. That's the origin point right there. And that's the primary source.
You know what fucks me up from that is whenever whenever I think about it too, they've remade that movie twice. Now the second remake, I didn't hate. I wish I didn't call it Black Christmas because it's nothing like it. I didn't mind the heavy-handedness, but because it was still kind of fun. Yeah. But that second remake, I'm like, how did two movies get it so wrong? Like that first movie really, that's why I do think it's more influential than Psycho. I think Psycho is heavily regarded by, all right, I'm going to say it straight up. We had
this debate before. You and I had this conversation last week, though. Like, I worship Psycho, so it was weird. Is like, I think Psycho is more influential on film, but Black Christmas is more influential on horror.
I agree with that, and completely, because I think the filmmaking in Psycho, the writing, everything is fantastic, and you should learn it. I don't think it's Hitchcock's best work, but like it's up there. It's in his top 5.
You're wrong there, but okay.
It's in his.
You can talk to Mrs. Shake more about that. I think it's the.
I know, but dude. So what? Oh, okay. So that's your number one.
That is my number. Like that is in my S rating, my perfect rating. Like we really need to have a breakdown of this. Like I have my top 500, and I nobody wants to sit through a 500 naming link thing from me. I know that for sure.
They will.
But my top 500 broken down into essentially, starting at perfect and working my way down to just above the Miyagi line. Okay. Starting at perfect and working my way just below the Miyagi line. And for those watching that don't know what I'm referencing with the Miyagi line, if you're a baseball fan, there's such a thing, as the Mendoza line, which is like, this is what the average batter is able to do, and it's usually around 200. Okay, we here at the Snob Society really think that rating movies has gone wild. When somebody's like, somebody will say something like, "That is the worst movie I've ever seen." Dude, have you seen Blood Lake? Because I
Make a
have.
horror movie.
Like, and so rating stuff has gone whack, and like, you have to understand that, like, when you watch a movie and you give that kind of like, this is the worst ever. Well, what you're really comparing it to historically is like some stuff that's really bad.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to have a measurement, a litmus test, a baseline that you're going from. And both Mick and I agree that Karate Kid is what you would call the 75% of film. Direct C, Miyagi line.
Yep.
It's watchable. It's good.
I would put it at good. That's see 75 to me is like when you're grading something. Like if somebody's a C, you're like at a good. B, you're above average, and A, you're exceptional at it. Is the way I look at it. You're a teacher, so you know way better than I do. But like, so I put it right at that C. Like it's good. I can watch it when it's on. Actually, after this, I want to tell you something else I'm doing. But I can watch it, but it's like. And it just balances out because you have that amazing scene where Miyagi's drunk and talking about his wife and his child. And
everybody forgets about that scene, though. They all they remember is sweep the leg.
But even that's the craziest part. When they're practicing on the beach and they're doing a crane kick, it's beautiful. You're like, yes. But when he does it in the fucking match, you're like, this is dog shit. This is stupid.
Well, that's it's what I would compare it to. You know what film is like in that same realm, so to speak, is Rocky.
Yeah, directed.
I know. And talk about 1970s. I'm treading on Best Picture Rocky, right? I'm treading on it, but like, there are parts of Rocky that people forget about. What they remember are the fights, and like what makes that movie great. When he turns around, he's talking to Mick, who has given up on him until suddenly he's relevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "What do you want me to do, Mick? You want to give me a face punched in?" And he starts punching the wall and he starts punching the bar, like. And Mick just turns around and walks out. That's what made that movie great. It's like Miyagi when he gives that speech, but people forget about those parts.
Yeah.
What's weird, all they remember are the action points, and the action points are actually low points in the film.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think, it's important to remember and take into account what is actually average when you're talking about film. And we get carried away. And you and I disagree about what's perfect. You know that. Mm-hmm. We do. But I think you and I do a good job of keeping in mind what is and is not average. You're putting me on the line.
Because like now I can look at you. Like now you're like the way you're looking.
You and I both have the extra wide screen, so it's like
you're looking away from me. I'm like, no. Yeah. I hear you.
But like, for instance, okay, so Darian says this, right? Mm-hmm. Let me take on Deliverance for a second.
Well, we did remember the stance on.
Oh yeah.
So and I just want to say that, like, let's talk about it now. But like, Darian, you should go back and look at the last conversation. I'll send it to Dan, the link to you. But it's intense.
Deliverance is a movie that needs to be made that I never need to watch again.
And that's the funny thing. I think generationally, men should watch that movie at least once every 10 years as a reminder, because that movie and that was John Borman's whole point. We talked about this, is to make men feel what women feel every day.
And they give, you and I talked about this. People try to break it down into a class warfare system, and it's just not accurate. That film is not about mountain men. What's crazy is that, like,
well, Burt Reynolds said it though. He said in an interview, he's like, the only one men see it, they don't understand it. Every woman I've ever met who's seen it understands it right off the bat.
Kind of, Scott. So you might be confusing that with another film that is Cabin Fever. Like,
No,
You know,
the banjo
you're-
kid is in this.
Okay, it's like I didn't know if he was gonna. So in Cabin Fever, which is a 2000s film, you have the goofy kid that's like pancakes. Like now that film you could talk about like it's about the difference in class. I mean that's, but Deliverance is a, a little bit deeper than that, a little bit further than that.
Actually, that scene, if re-examined, and Dan, I really think you should. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna make. I'm not gonna do that.
I don't,
But,
dude. You know how I feel about it. Like I just,
oh, I know. But that scene, like the way, like as I've been studying it more and more, and what it actually means, because there is a classist system to it there, but it's the dominance of power between men, working class men versus men like who are more upper class, and that's the whole point of this is the whole power shift, and that's what the delight, because the happiest moment is when they're playing the banjos.
yeah. I
During
mean
the movie.
that's yeah. Even at the end, it's not really particularly happy.
No, because and that's the funny thing. It was like they judged the entire city. That's why they were on the run after they killed the guy. They were like, they're going to kill us, and that's why women never go often never go to report it, because they're going to be against us. They're not going to they're not going to believe in all this stuff in the society, and that's why at the end when they're just like, we're just going to let this go. We understand, yeah, and like because they weren't the ones who were going to attack them. They understood what happened.
Hey, so Mick, you're a film guy. You have a good background in terms of producing. I don't know, like you directed, right?
I only shorts.
Okay, so and you acted. Why is it that cinematically the 1970s tends to be so vacant compared to the 60s and 80s? If I'm thinking about the 70s film genre, you can't really call it a genre, but 70s decade era, whatever you want. What is it that limits them compared to other decades?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about this quite a bit, especially today. I usually think about the different decades and how it feels, especially when I'm watching something from within that. And right now, I've been watching a lot of Godzilla and the Showa era from the 50s, 60s.
Yep.
And Star Trek, the original series. And as I'm watching it, I'm kind of getting a
68
tone.
to 70, right? Correct.
Which one?
Star Trek is 68 to 70.
66 to 67.
Okay, 66, 60. I knew it was like a short period. That was.
Yeah, they were. And as I'm watching it, and I'm seeing very similar themes that I also see in other movies that I'm picking out, even not science fiction, but like the musicals are coming out were a lot more grander in the 50s and 60s. And I was trying to think, why is that? Why is it that from 1950, even when we had a war going on, to 1969, when really Midnight Cowboy was sort of that shift within the movie period, that turned, and it was like, we're going to get darker, and the 70s gets dark. Dan, I am not kidding. There was, like, when I say, when going through the 70s and all these movies and seeing literal thousands of movies each year that are about rape in such a fantasy way,
or fetishized almost,
and fetishized, it was disheartening and really like fucked me up a little bit. Like, because I'm like, that's
should. I mean, like, that's it. Like, I don't necessarily even know in the 70s if that was the intent of some of the directors either.
But you got to remember, before I got to the 70s, from 1980 to 2023, I went through thousands and thousands of movies looking back, because I knew I saw more. And there isn't even there's barely a fraction of movies that cover that topic in the way they were covered in the 70s.
You think the 70s are accurate?
No. What I mean is,
okay.
like, there's like virtually none like there are in the 70s movies about rape. Like there are, but comparatively to that 10-year period, it's and I haven't gotten to the 60s, 50s, so I'm going to really like kind of work on this a little bit more. I don't want to just put down like this is fact, but what I'm finding is that was such a dark time in the 70s. I mean, yes, there was a recession, there was so many strikes, there's and so many things going on. Nixon, the Vietnam
well, that's
War.
what I told the people during the pandemic when they started freaking about like some of the violence. I was like, understand, like, what you're calling violent acts, that's commonplace.
Yeah.
You go back to the 60s and 70s, and like it's just like you're talking about a Tuesday. We've just been very privileged in terms of like socially, we've been pretty
Yeah.
Like I don't know how else to call it, but socially we've been pretty tame, right? Like pretty.
Oh, by
pretty, like,
comparison,
yeah.
yeah. But it's funny because you jump back to the 50s and 60s. Like I understand why the 80s was so stylized and upbeat, is because
Great.
the 70s was, and yes, it was great, and it really, and now I got to be honest. Like I always used to say, there was an allure, that Dazed and Confused style of. I wish I could have lived in the 70s. My mom was in high school in the 70s, so like it got glorified and what it was, the music that came out, all that stuff, like in the style. And then I went through this today, and I'm like, nah, I think I'll go with the 80s. And the 80s wasn't great either. There was a lot of things going on, but there's a lot more upbeatness, hopefulness that kind of came in.
I've always stood for this, and it 70 stands out in terms of what you're saying, like kind of anti what I'm saying. Like, but if you want to talk about so this fits though. So socially, when you have really troubled times, science fiction and horror,
Mhm.
like kind of rise to the cream. And so like you have the 80s and a lot of the different social scares that took place.
Yeah.
And horror rises to the top in terms of it. That's why you see the downplay in the 90s. And then you kind of see the rise of it in the 2010s again. Like social issues start coming to the forefront, right?
Yeah.
Now, to contrast that, when you don't have periods of social like unrest, you might end up having films that kind of are looking for that. And that might explain to a certain extent the 70s in terms of stuff, because like people had a relative era of stagnation in the 70s. That's a good word for it. Like not a lot was going on. And you know, you have the end of Vietnam, like for all intents and purposes, even though Vietnam, we pulled our people out in 1975, really 1972 is the end of Vietnam.
Mhm.
End of Nixon, all that stuff, all the way up to there, all you have are financial issues. But people are relatively safe, with the exception of New York. And that's how you end up with movies like Taxi Driver. But
Overrated.
that's wrong.
It is overrated. It's not.
No, it isn't. Oh my
Mean
God.
Streets is a better movie.
No, Mean Streets is not, Joe Bob. Mean Streets is not a better movie.
It's a better movie about
I
this.
would argue. Listen,
That's such a
talk
sensationalized,
about
violent movie.
You want to talk about wet dream for me? I want to go toe to toe historically with Joe Bob about Mean Streets. Can I please do that? Bring it on, Joe Bob. I will sit down.
You got to get through level 1, boss. First.
Oh yeah,
Let's
level
do
like,
that.
I'm like level 0.
What's your problem with listen, Ninja Gaiden? What's your problem with Mean Streets?
I don't have a problem. I have a problem when people elevate Mean Streets above a cinematic masterpiece. That's my problem.
I put Mean Streets for essentially a first-time film. Wasn't his first, but like essentially a first-time film. You know, that really made this huge director in Martin Scorsese. Like the only other thing I can really compare it to, like maybe Spike Lee would Do the Right Thing.
Oh no!
It's such a good, powerful movie.
No,
dude,
listen,
you cannot tell me that Taxi Driver is a better movie. It's well acted. It's well told. I like the movie, but it's a sensationalized, stylized, violent look at the 70s, and I respect it for what it is. But it's not a great story. It's not a great story. It's a good character piece on Vietnam veterans and what was going on at the time.
Listen, it is to New York what Rambo was to people coming home from the Vietnam War. I think that Taxi Driver, especially Jodie Foster's role in Taxi Driver, like pulls forward issues that take place in New York, especially in the late 1970s, that Mean Streets fails it, because Mean Streets, to a certain extent, I think they take it too far.
I think Mean Streets is one of the most realistic looks at city, living in the urban environment of the ghetto, growing up in that culture, being connected with these guys. That is such, even like in the 90s, I could associate myself to that. You know what I can associate myself to? I can even associate myself to Driver before Taxi Driver. Let me tell you. All right, like it's and again, I really like Taxi Driver, and I can dissect it and love it, and there's so many amazing things about it. I'm not saying it's not good. I would put it just above the Miyagi line, but I'd put
it's like, it's not perfect. I mean, even I think even Scorsese would say that movie's not perfect.
I want to bring up Darian said something here I want to bring up. Robert De Niro walks so Joaquin Phoenix could run. Can I? All right. Here, I just would like to
agree
say this.
100%, Darian.
I first, I don't think Joaquin Phoenix is worthy of licking Robert De Niro's shoes. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think everybody thinks about Taxi Driver, thinks about Mean Streets, thinks about Goodfellas or Casino when they think about Robert De Niro. And I don't think those are his best acted movies. He has put up so many great performances where he's not playing a stereotypical American Italian type, and has done such wonderful stories in the 80s that got overlooked that people need to look at. Dramas and everything he brought into it. First of all, Awakenings alone is one of his best performances.
Listen,
you know,
his masterpiece will always be Raging Bull. I mean, that's like
it is.
But
That's not it. I don't think that's his masterpiece. I think that's Scorsese's masterpiece.
come on, man. Really?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's Pesci's masterpiece either. You're going to tell me for Pesci, My Cousin Vinny's not his masterpiece?
No, I disagree. I think that was fun. I mean, I think that's a fun film.
He handled that so perfectly in the way it's acted. Go watch that movie again, but from the analytical eye of what a good movie is, because you can, and I know you can, you have it. So, and just look at it from that, not from the fun jokes or anything like that, but like everything within frame in that movie, every line, everything they do is perfectly timed out, and not many movies can pull that off.
I think what one of the things that Darian's referencing in terms of this is
the movie.
Awesome. I love it. One of the things he's really referencing though is like Taxi Driver is what a movie like. I mean, he's right. It's great.
I wouldn't even say good. He was, and I'm talking performances. I'm not saying Cape Fear is better than Goodfellas. I'm not saying it's better than Taxi Driver. It's not.
Okay.
But his part in that, like from an acting perspective, he was a genius in that.
But so I think what he's really referencing in terms of walking so Joaquin Phoenix can run is Joker. And I think he's paralleling, I think this kind of parallel and comparison between Joker and something. So here's an interesting take in terms of like what you're analyzing historically is like you have something like Taxi Driver that has an anti-hero in terms of Travis Bickle and to a certain extent romanticizes Travis Bickle, and people watch that and they say like, no, well, I'll say this. Nobody watched Taxi Driver and said, I want to be Travis Bickle. But some people said, I want to be a better person, I think is a good way to phrase it. Meanwhile, you got a whole generation of, especially people under the age of like, I think right now under the age of about 22. So they watch Joker when they're about 15. And they watch that film, they say, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah. You know what, though? And for me, though, Taxi Driver at 15. Well, no, I didn't want to be like that guy. But at Taxi Driver at 15, yeah, the sensationalism of heroism. Yes, of course. But
so both of them are anti-heroes, whereas like,
but at the end, he's viewed as an
anti-hero. I would rather be than Phoenix's anti-hero.
I will tell you.
I that's what I think. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, Darren, tell me. But like, that to me is like, and he does a better job. I mean, De Niro does a phenomenal job in like Taxi Driver, whereas I think Joaquin Phoenix and he gets this credit for Joker that potentially he shouldn't have gotten. And people read that film wrong all the time too. Like both, and of course now in the modern age, it's like liberalism versus conservatism. Both liberals and conservatives get that film wrong. Both of them do.
Yeah,
they don't understand the point. And like that film is not trying, like Joker, that is that film is not trying to do anything other than point at a lack of structure in terms of mental health awareness and help.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like they're like, oh, liberals are like, look, they're romanticizing Joker, and then conservatives watch it and they're like, see, that's the threat, and you're both wrong and dumb. So that film doesn't do what a lot of people think it does. Meanwhile, Taxi Driver has been analyzed to the nth degree, right? And like I do agree that, like, to a certain extent, like,
I think it's
those
more
are
about
two-
PTSD from military
yeah,
service.
and
Yeah.
and I think that, like, that's a good comparison. That's a good parallel
If I could,
between.
and it is. And now that you say that, I appreciate you connecting that dot for me because I wasn't putting the two together at the time when he said that. And the fact that De Niro being in Joker too, which
And that what a
another great
crazy
performance.
moment where they're both at, like, on the stage at the same time, right? And,
Yeah.
like, and so I, like, yeah, good comment. I don't know. We
No,
really
no,
got away from, like, the wheel, but,
no, but I like that.
like,
No, but listen, that's what it's all about. We go anywhere. But for me, like Taxi Driver is still a great movie. It's a great movie, but I think why I think it's so overrated is exactly that. It's gotten wrong, and it doesn't. It's a good product of its time. Like
okay,
The Shining for me, I can watch today, and like it takes you could tell it's 1980, but
it's
it,
timeless.
it's timeless. Like Taxi Driver's not timeless to me. Goodfellas is timeless to me.
Ooh.
Because I don't know if the nature of it is what makes it that way, but like,
A better question might be, like, so what's the mafia hierarchy? It would be like Goodfellas, Casino, Godfather.
oh, but I mean, what are we at? What are we adding? Are we adding Scarface? Are we adding the original Scarface?
Scarface is not a mafia movie to me.
I agree.
All right,
I think that's a really overrated movie too, personally.
you're wrong, but okay.
And it's
like,
not
it's
even his
I
best
mean,
performance.
yeah, how many times have you heard this and you're like, people are either Scarface or a Godfather person, right? Like, and I'm both. But it's because people misrepresent Scarface, and people, like, I watched a documentary that was 4.5 hours long about essentially Miami Vice.
Mhm.
And they brought up the Scarface impact in 1983 and how it, like, brought a light to certain things in Miami. I think that it's important to note that Scarface is not a mafia movie. And part of the problem is
No,
that,
I was saying that because it is often put
yeah,
into that
it
category.
puts into the category and people read it wrong. The whole point is that he's really bad at being a gangster. He's, like, really bad at being. Robert Loggia points us out. He's like, you're bad at this. And, like, and he kills them because he's stupid. But I think that it's important to compare those. Not
Well,
Scarface.
it is, but I think that's also a way of, and actually I put more comparison on the two Al Pacino movies of Carlito's Way in this movie.
That's it. Yeah.
And how it kind of mirrors, and like he is terrible. He's never shuts the fuck up. Everybody knows he's the one doing this shit. And it's just he's throughout, he's building enemy after enemy within his family, within his friend, everything. And I actually, comparatively to what we're talking about, the look and feel of the 70s into the 80s, that movie I feel like mirrors that perfectly too, because it starts so droll and then it gets into the 80s, it's stylized and he's buying into it and he's all about the consumerism.
So
It was fucking bad. I mean, I liked it, but it was like long and
that's a good comment. Like, The Irishman, to contrast with all of these elements we're talking about, we're entering a new era where films, and you and I have talked about this before, are following, like, essentially books. And now people are trying to fill time in movies to basically, like, justify somebody going to the movies to watch it and paying $12.50. And, like, so The Irishman's a really good example of this. Talk about overblown and overproduced and overacted. It was a dry, drawn out representation of, you know what, you want to watch a better version of that, but, like, go watch The Departed.
yeah, 100% agree.
That's
Actually, that would be my number one. That would be
Irishman.
my number one gangster film if we were doing it. And that does count as a gangster film.
Now, I do. So here's the thing. I think that The Departed is a perfect film, but is it better than The Godfather Part 2?
Fuck. All right, I can't have that debate at this moment. There's something else you said I need to address first.
The question is, like, The Godfather Part 2 is.
I have to think about that. Now I'm hurting. Well, no, I want to go back to what you were saying real quick before we get to that, because you touched on something I really wanted to elaborate on a little bit. and that is right now. I think The Irishman is a good representation of the studio versus filmmaker, not class war, but like auteur war in a way. Like,
I love it.
Look at everything that studios are doing right now. Every IP they're trying to collect up has to be open for a franchise. It's not really filmmaking anymore. So yes, what are the auteurs doing when they don't have all of the scripts ready to written that to do films are going to do? They're going to turn to books, so that way there is material. And that's what they're doing with Oppenheimer. That's what they're doing Irishman. That's what they're doing Killers of the Flower Moon. All these things. And the problem is they're not amazing films that everybody thinks they are. Oppenheimer is a great movie. But, I'll never watch it again. I don't care.
I don't. My hard part is that like I don't really care about Robert J. Oppenheimer. I like.
Yeah.
That's you want to tell interesting stories about people. You're gonna have to find a new venue that hasn't been beaten to death, other than World War I and World War II. Like, I don't want more stories, or the Civil War. I don't want more stories about it. And I know I'm a history nerd, whatever. Like, but I'm sorry, I don't like. It's you want to watch the premiere World War II movie, watch Gettysburg. You want to watch the premiere World War I movie, it was All Quiet on the Western Front, and the silent version, not the color version from 1970, whatever.
100%.
If you want to watch the premiere World War II movie, you got a lot of option to go to. I prefer something like The Thin Red Line if you want the Pacific Theater of War, or if you want the European Theater of War. I tend to like Saving Private Ryan because I like Tom Hanks. Like,
I mean, are we only sticking within like the last 40 years or so? Because I would argue some of those for, like, there's some really good Pacific movies from the 60s.
You like that? You like those? Like, I mean, they have other like the fighting scenes.
No, I'm talking about ones that maybe weren't as, Also, I like Flags of Your Father.
Sure. I mean, like that's in it. I mean, pick your poison, right? But
wait, no. Which one was it? The Japanese version. That's
Flags
the one.
of Our Fathers. Is that the?
Yeah, there was one where it was about.
They were cold.
Not
movies.
that one.
Yeah.
The Japanese one was really good. Letters to Iwo Jima. Sorry.
Okay. And Darian points out Korean War. Okay, yeah, that's more. Not a lot has been told about that. Vietnam, you got your choice. I particularly like what's that?
Oh, that was more, but they were Vietnam vets. Well, not vets, but they were Vietnam Marines that I kind of attribute it more to Vietnam.
And even the first Iraqi war, we have a couple of great film exemplars on that. Like, I don't need to revisit that stuff. And so, like, I'm sorry, Oppenheimer, I didn't go see you because I didn't feel the need to. And I like, you want to know what was really cool to see in the theater? Like, that was long. Because, like, I complain about long films. I want 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. I want it, like, if you can't give me that film in 2 hours, there's a good chance I'm probably going to watch it at home.
Here's the thing, and it's always been said as this. Your movie, if it's over 2 hours, is either an event film, like an epic, and it better be fucking epic. Killers of the Flower Moon's not a fucking epic. Oppenheimer's not a fucking epic. I'm sorry, it's not. It didn't even have the best nuclear explosion of the year. Yeah. But anyway, on screen. But or it's poorly written because you don't know how to edit your writing, and that's what I'm seeing with everything.
Like, Vietnam, Platoon versus Forrest Gump. You basically want your realism versus romanticism. Which would you? The worst Vietnam movie is the one that a lot of people cite. It's the Kubrick one. What's it?
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. And a terrible Vietnam movie. I
love that movie.
Really?
Well, it's not supposed to be a Vietnam movie. That's not the point.
I mean, that's
a movie about the Marines. That's why it takes place in Paris Island.
Talk about overrated.
It's not. Is it?
People will put that in S tier. People will be like, "That's a perfect film." I'm like, dude,
I wouldn't call it a perfect film, but I really do enjoy the film.
Even the director didn't think it was that good.
That's not what I've never read that.
Yeah, Kubrick was like, it's one of my least favorite films.
I have to go back and look. I've never read that. I've read like things about it, but yeah. Well,
He
either
said
way,
that was one of his least favorite films.
I'm weird though. There's certain movies that like
Yeah, of
are
course, his
epic.
favorite film that he made was the one that was naturally lit, and he was so obsessed about how he didn't use any
Oh,
artificial.
Barry
lighting.
Lyndon.
Barry
Yeah,
Lyndon.
he was super
What's that,
proud of that.
78 is it Barry Lyndon? Like,
Do you know who owned that lens for a long time? Sylvester Stallone's son. And I don't know what happened after he died. If maybe Sylvester Stallone got it, but I like it. But I can see I'll agree to that. I think Full Metal Jacket is an overrated film. But I like it. I think it's a great film, but I think it's an overrated film. Like the same as Taxi Driver. I think it's good for its time. At that, I can watch it because I have personal connection to it. But I can see why somebody may never watch it again. And actually, oh, good.
Vietnam 1970s film Apocalypse Now.
I think it's overrated.
Have you seen the 4-hour cut of it?
I've seen every cut of that movie.
Oh my gosh. I do. So here's one thing I do like about it, but I do agree that it's overrated. It's parallel to The Heart of Darkness written by Joseph Conrad. The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad is a masterpiece of English literature. Like everybody who is anybody should read that.
And especially if you want to be a writer, I will always 100% say read that book.
So in terms of like the film and the short story, like
I agree.
I don't know, Scott. Like I hate talk about a tonal shift, and I don't like. I don't know. Private Joker in that film bugs the crap out of me because
and that's the point. That's his duality. That's how he gets through
it.
He's
man! But even when he's a soldier and then he's downriver, I still.
Ooh,
I'm like,
you're gonna get beat up by some Marines.
Bother me. Like,
don't call Marine soldiers. They're gonna go crazy. They hate that.
Listen, I'm Army. I will call everybody a soldier, whether they like it or not. Like,
Marine for life. Semper Fi. Semper Fi. My brothers are both Marines.
But I think that, like, I don't know. I think one of the biggest problems I have in terms of that film is that, like, people worship the idea of it, and that really bothers me. Because, like, Platoon is a movie that you want to worship a Vietnam movie. Platoon should be worshipped, right? Like, it not only is it a masterpiece of cinema and damn near perfect film, it's acted so well and presented in a way by somebody who was in Vietnam, Stanley Kubrick. Like, that's the other part.
No, Oliver Stone.
No, I'm saying, like, to contrast between the two films. Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant Platoon.
Right? He doesn't know anything about anything, and he's people will cite that as like that's how it is. No, I have an uncle who was in basic training during the same time period, and like he's like, no, just no, and he was a Marine, and it was like it was bad, but like they try to depict it as though these guys were like reduced to ashes or something like that. Yeah, the difference is this: Platoon. Talk about like put in a modern context. Platoon is a conservative film, and Saving Private Ryan is a liberal film.
Yeah, and as I'm glad you mentioned that actually. But if you go back to We Were Soldiers here, I would say it's a good movie, but it's a sensationalized movie.
Yep.
So like it's under the Miyagi line for me, but it's a good movie.
But part of the reason is that the book was just okay, and I think that influences how I view the film. The same thing, honestly. What's weird is like, films like Gettysburg. They got the script from a book, and I don't know. I think to a certain extent when I read the book and I don't like the book, and then I turn around and watch the movie, I'm like influenced by how I read the book. Yeah. And so even if it's a masterpiece, I immediately am like, well, I didn't like the book either, so fuck this thing. Like,
yeah, I get that. Is that why you hate Jaws so much?
I read Jaws for the first time when I was 5.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. I read Jaws for the first time when I was 5. My mom had it on her bookshelf, and I pulled it down. We've talked about this. My big thing with Jaws really comes down to the fact that the first third of the film I think is unnecessary. Brevity is the price of admission. It doesn't highlight the parts that it should.
What is everything okay? I'm listening to every word you're saying right now.
I think that, like, to a certain extent, the protagonist of that film should be the shark. And I know I joke all the time, and yes,
The
absolutely.
protagonist,
of
if
that
that
film should be the
anything,
shark.
is perfectly. How do you have? It's not, oh my god!
You want
It's
to?
such
So
a
you want to
great
know
character.
how? This is how you do. This is how you do Jaws. And here's what's weird. I'm talking about brevity, but the longer version of Jaws is Avengers Endgame.
Ugh.
And it's how you take your antagonist and make them the protagonist. And that's a perfect study in it. The shark really should be the protagonist of that film, and the people should be a byproduct of his domain, so to speak. You want to see how that can be done. Watch a movie like Twister. Now, Twister is a far inferior movie to Jaws. I'm not saying that Twister is better than Jaws, please. I'm not. But
Kind of sounds
you
like
have
it.
a natural element that can't speak, can't act, can't do anything, right?
No.
If I sat down with Steven Spielberg, I would ask him, like, why do you choose to make mankind the protagonist of that film instead of the shark? And you put man at odds with nature. A great version of that story, too. Like, have you ever read The Interlopers?
No.
So it's a great story about pre-civilized or pre-20th century Europe. These two barons have kind of like a land feud, and a log falls on them while they're in the forest and fighting over their land. And the tree, to a certain extent, nature becomes the protagonist of the short story as it progresses. And at the end, when they've both gotten along, you think the whole thing is about these two getting over their feud. Wolves show up and they're going to eat the two guys.
Oof.
And yep. And like, sharks could be handled in the same way. Like, it should be more about mankind's terrible attempts at basically cooperating with nature. And that's my problem with, like, how they spend so much time. They dissect the shark. That's not Jaws. They spend time with the mayor, who is an unnecessary character in that film. They examine human nature more than they examine the shark. And that's it.
You don't
I'm
need the
sorry.
shark.
I just
Well, you can examine the shark. What if they wanted to, but the goddamn thing didn't work? So for what? Everything that happened, and for a guy who is in the industry for maybe like 3 or 4 years, but directing for maybe about 3, right? Maybe 3 or 4. I think Duel came out in like 72 or whatever. But like really studio
Duel
direct.
is a better film than Jaws.
Oh my god.
And I believe that. You talk about a masterpiece. People, if you have not seen Steven Spielberg's Duel,
You were too
watch
loose
it.
with that word.
Oh, no. It's his second best film.
What? No, it
Duel
isn't.
is phenomenal. Duel will surprise you, and is directed in a way that, like, suddenly, like, like, especially the protagonist of that film, that shitty salesman, that shitty door-to-door salesman, like, you actually legitimately care. By the time when Jaws happens, the only character that I really care about is Quint. By the time the shark shows up, he's the only one. Like,
Dan.
I'm sorry, I don't care about the nerd. What's the actor's name? I always forget his name.
Richard Dreyfuss. I was in
Yeah, I don't
Jaws.
care about Richard
Hooper.
Dreyfuss' character. I really don't care about Chief Brody. My wife loves Chief Brody. Miranda thinks that Chief Brody is like the greatest thing, right? She's like, I love Chief Brody. Man, fuck Chief Brody. Like, you want to know? I'm sorry, dude. I don't, like, who really, like, why does he have the dialogue he has with his wife in that film? Like,
Because it's so.
no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It
The
doesn't
whole story is
anything.
everything in that. No, I can't do. I am too high to go through step by step. But if you come back next week, we're going step by step, and I'll tell you exactly why everything works. Plus, I should rewatch it before I can take notes. But
I'm sorry. It's just like I know it's your S tier film. I mean, you love that film. You feel about that film the same way I feel about The Shining, and you disagree with me about The Shining. Like,
no, that's a great film.
But you don't think it's perfect, you said.
Well, but I don't think any film's perfect. There's always issues.
There have to be. Like, So
you can't have a perfect film. You can have films that are perfect for you, but you cannot have a universally perfect film. That's like asking for the universally perfect anything. We can't. So so for me, I look at it from the perspective of like you can get to near perfect as possible, right? And The Shining is goddamn close to perfect. I think The Jaws is too. I also think that Jurassic Park is, which I know you disagree with.
no, I didn't like my
But
problem.
a
with
lot of the
Jurassic Park-
films, you'll say a lot of those films, and I'll agree with you. There are some that we just can.
So here's the issue with Jurassic Park is they take it's the right take. It's the anti-Jaws. They make the dinosaurs the protagonists, so to speak, of that film. And that's why it ends. I mean, it ends really with like showing that the dinosaurs rule the park.
Yep.
Where they lose me, the whole Sam Neill journey with the kids. They really, really lose me. They have that like Spielberg-esque moment where they're sitting in the tree and like, oh, that's an Ed. I've never seen the whole film, Darian.
I would.
I only
put
know
it-
the ending, and I was compared to somebody told me I was exactly like Brad Pitt in the ending of that film.
Yeah, that's legit. That's exactly how it. Dude, I watch Reacher, and I'm like, yeah, that's 90% of how I'd handle that situation. And
But I think here the other part is this. I mean, I don't disagree that like you have perfect films for people, but there has to be. And this is just the like literary critic in me, like the
there's no
Aristotelian
perfect
nature.
novel either.
That I disagree.
I know you're a novel head. I get it. You're a
Like
reader,
that's
man.
like
I am
the
too. But
Aristotelian nature of fiction is such that there have to be exemplars. You have to have things that are
Dan thinks that Jurassic Park is down here, and
Oh, I
Duel
didn't say
is
it
up
below. I didn't say it was below,
here.
but I did say it was. I definitely said it wasn't. It wasn't that far above it. If I'm gonna put Jaws in a category, it's like not that far above Karate Kid. It's not that like when I got those two together, I put them. You know, if Karate Kid is a 3, Jaws is a 2. You know, or vice versa, whatever you want to say. Like, I think that like I do think there are universal. And this is a big difference. I mean, it's why I'm like who I am. There are things that are universally heralded and should be.
Well, okay.
Godfather 2.
To elaborate a little bit more, because I want to hear something about the perfect book or the perfect novel. In your opinion, what is a perfect novel? Just to kind of get an idea of this, because we don't have a Miyagi line for this.
Great Gatsby is a perfect novel.
I disagree.
So here,
I don't even think it's F. Scott Fitzgerald's best work.
Oh, 100% is. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Oh my gosh. So Great Gatsby is a perfect novel. Every word in that book, he doesn't waste a single word. It's talk about brevity. You only have about 230 pages. And in those 230 pages, he tells the story of people and humans. I know you were, Scott, because I was part of developing that curriculum.
All right. But I think this is what I mean, though. Perfect for you. I would put Slaughterhouse-5 as a near perfect book.
It's Slaughterhouse-5 is that's so if I think that's a perfect novel as well. I love and Vonnegut is a hero of mine. I think that Kurt Vonnegut understood people the same way that to a certain extent F. Scott Fitzgerald did. That while it's inherently important to be a realist, there's nothing wrong with romanticizing specific parts of being a human because that's all you have.
Yeah.
And that's like I think that like in the pantheon of books, something like so the 3 books that I put well how many on Mount Rushmore? 4 or 5? I remember.
See, that's to me. It's like if the Miyagi line is a 75%, your Mount Rushmore is your perfect. And that's why it's different for every single person. Like I guarantee you, my Mount Rushmore of novels, you pick 4, I'll pick 4, they're going to be vastly different.
Of course, but I did. So I got like in mine, I'd put like Gatsby. And instead of, and here's what's funny is even though I just talked so highly of Slaughterhouse-Five, that is not Vonnegut's best book. Vonnegut's best book is a novel called Player Piano. So I put Gatsby, Player Piano, Frankenstein.
Frankenstein's on mine. Okay, fuck.
Frankenstein, and then this is hard because to a certain extent, none of those novels pushes, and I want one that pushes. So I'm going to put Fight Club as my fourth one.
See, I didn't like the book. I like Choke better than Fight Club. Not the movie. Not the movie.
The movie was. Although I do love who's the protagonist in that film. What's his actor's name? He's so good. I can't remember his name right now. But it. Here's why Fight Club.
Mhm.
To a certain extent, ignore the film because the book's very different. It pushes the boundaries without being pornographic, and I don't mean pornographic in terms of sexual. I mean pornographic in terms of content, right? Like it pushes the boundaries without exceeding it. And it's why I put that instead of something like American Psycho, or another one. Ooh, no, so ignore that. My fourth one is American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
Great book.
What I wanted to say with Fight Club better, while also not pushing the boundaries as far. So my fourth one is American Gods by Neil Gaiman.
Less Than Zero is a good one. Frankenstein's on mine. I don't know if I'm going to put Slaughterhouse-Five on my Rushmore. Although it is Lord of the Rings, I'd probably put on mine.
So here's why, which one are you going to pick? Because you can't.
Well, Fellowship is like.
I love it, and it's right back there. Like if you're going to put them all three together as one book, The Lord of the Rings, then I'm on board with you.
I do agree that it should be. I think it should be all together. It's one story, but I do understand that we said novel and there's continuation. So I'm going to take that off then. Although, yeah, you're right.
Darian said Animal Farm, Mice and Men, both great books.
Yeah, they're great. They're great. Top tier.
Yeah, great. They have limitations, and Darian knows actually from class some of the limitations, but like Animal Farm's big limitation really is like its time period, and of Mice and Men's limitation really is that it was written as a play. It was originally written to be a play, and that's why it's told in sequence like the way it is. You have gaps in terms of like how Steinbeck tells that story.
Yeah.
The gaps that take place provoke questions. And here's what's funny, and I never got this far into it in class in large part because I didn't think students can handle it, but it's Steinbeck's attempt at being Hemingway. He's trying to adopt the iceberg method of storytelling, and he falls short in that film because you actually legitimately can't answer book. You can't answer some questions from that book. And as a result, those blank spots could only be told if it was told in terms of a play. And so, anyway, the gaps.
Well, I see. I'm kind of because I'm like, there's so many places, and I'm thinking about it from. If it's on my Rushmore, it should make me feel really good. I'm gonna put The Time Machine on there. I read it when I was real young.
It doesn't bother you that H.G. Wells just like completely plagiarized most of what he wrote.
Well, I was unaware, but whatever. I still
so he didn't like, even though he's celebrated, H.G. Wells is celebrated as being this like premier science fiction author. He just took like pulp short stories. So do you know what I mean by pulp? Those paperback ones that were made out of like pulp paper. So he would just lift ideas constantly, and all of his books, whether you're talking about like Journey to the Center of the Earth, Time Machine, all that stuff, to a certain extent. Catch 22 is Mr. Shake's favorite novel.
That's a great book.
I'm not.
I'm going to take The Time Machine off. I'm glad you told me that, but that hurts my heart a little bit. But,
I mean, you can't. But the other part is this, Mick. In your defense, there's nobody in the history of time who hasn't lifted something from somebody. People celebrate Poe, and Poe basically just aped everything that Europe was doing at that time. So it just depends. My problem with H.G. Wells is he's celebrated as like a premier science fiction author. And I mean, there are people who are doing it better at the same time that didn't get celebrated, that don't survive because they were pulp writers. And I mean, that pulp paper did not survive. It's like magazines, that like they just don't survive.
After a while, yeah, when it becomes too much money.
Oh, Darian, don't get me started on short stories.
I would, To Kill a Mockingbird might be on my.
Hate it.
I love that book.
Not just because I taught it for 13 years, but also because it's two different books. The first half was probably written by Harper Lee's best friend, and the second half was actually written by her.
I don't want to talk to you about books anymore. You're ruining the stories of my books for me. Let me have the legend. I will tell.
You talk about Disney stories about how every single one is actually terrible.
All right, I'm picking personal to me then. Fine. I'm not picking. I never was saying that these were the best either. But Frankenstein's definitely on there. I'm keeping To Kill a Mockingbird. I love that book. I love that book.
Man, people love it. Some people name their kids after it.
Loving story. I love it so much. And Atticus Finch in the book and in the movie inspire me. They're the Superman of their day, in my opinion.
So, literarily speaking, what that's called white savior, and it's highly problematic.
Oh my God! Fine, Jesus, you're ruining this. You just want me to dwindle down till I say.
No, listen, I don't like. I am way too educated about.
I know. That's why I don't want to have this argument because I'm not going to win. I'm not playing.
No, it's not about winning. It's not about winning. No,
but you're ruining my.
I'm sorry.
I'm picking books that I just like. Don't ruin them for me. All right, I'm picking new books. Not Frankenstein. Keep Frankenstein.
Keep Frankenstein. It's a masterpiece. Probably the first science fiction masterpiece.
I love Dracula, but Frankenstein's up there. Count of Monte Cristo is my favorite book.
Great book, but
love it.
My problem with Count of Monte Cristo really comes down to this. To a certain extent, Alexander Dumas has better works, and like on top of that, its deconstruction of what you call the French monarchy at the time was highly influenced by the fact that he was wealthy, and so his depiction of poverty in the novel goes like completely missed. And like,
I have a new
book. God, I keep saying movie because most of the time we talk about movies.
I have a new show idea. It's called Dan Ruins Books for Mick.
I used to let my students mention. I'd be like, "Okay, what's your favorite Disney movie?" And I'd be like, "Well, here's the actual story." And their favorite one was always like, they'd be like, "The Little Mermaid." I was like, "Do you want to know the real version of the Little Mermaid? Yeah, you want to know the real version of Cinderella? You want to know like the real version of Hansel and Gretel, where they shovel the kids into the furnace?" The reality is that a lot of these stories that come from the past are one of two things. They were created in a way that like
cautionary tales, right?
What's that?
Weren't they like cautionary tales for some?
Well, in Disney, but a lot of the novels, especially from the 17th and 18th centuries, were justifications for writers living on somebody else's land. They would invite people to live there and write because it was like prestigious. So like if you were a great writer, they'd take you. Oh, awesome.
Following the French Revolution.
Oh, Gods Will Have Blood that's a great book. Also, delving into the French Revolution and what took place is nuts and bonkers, and just a great example of why you don't want revolutionaries. And so he took place in class. He knows this from class. Power corrupts, absolutely. And so the French Revolution is a great example of that. Like the people who took power initially in they were, Scott. People who took power in the French Revolution ultimately abused that power and turned that power back on their people, and they themselves were executed. And like it's such a great examination of why when somebody says revolutionary in terms of political ideology, I say threat. That's it. Like being forward thinking is good, being anti-thinking is bad. And like it
kind of where we're at now.
We're on the cusp of a lot of big things, man. Big, bad, or good. But I think that like the French Revolution is a cautionary tale in how we should view problems. The citizenship initially viewed problems in a very good light. And then when the citizenship took power, they then turned that power back on the people who disagreed with them. And that's when it goes wrong. when you take the power and you cyclically apply it the same way that people who came before you, and talk about so I mean, Animal Farm was mentioned, and people misrepresent Animal Farm. They teach Animal Farm as though it's only a cautionary tale against communism. Animal Farm is a cautionary tale against power, and how power, once you get it, will end up making you look like the people who you took it from, always. So that's why at the end, when the pigs walk to the table at the end of the novel and they're standing there with all of the rest of the farmers, people misrepresent that.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how power, no matter the form it takes, is a threat. And like, oh, I could talk about this for days, man.
I know. You can ruin books for me for days.
I'm sorry, man. I like.
No. Well, you didn't ruin the books, but at the same time, you're like, oh man.
There's no.
I didn't
such
say
thing,
Mein Kampf. Calm down.
There's no such thing as a news story. There's only one.
No,
there are two stories really. There is, the threat is outside us, and there's the threat is inside us. Ooh, Robespierre is a great character to examine. What a history character right there. Robespierre and the power that he inherited and the power that he abused. Oh, it takes me back to, so I studied that stuff, Mick. This is how long ago I studied that stuff. I studied that stuff in 1999. AP European history. I was the youngest kid in that class. Everybody was older than me. I was a grade above me. And like,
how many grades did you skip?
I didn't skip grades, but when I got into high school, my intent was to graduate my junior year. And so I tried to take all these advanced courses. And then my junior year, I took nothing but AP classes, thinking that it would. And then at the end of the year, I go into the I go into the counselor, and she's like, "Oh, you still need one more English credit and one more." Oh, I needed typing. I needed typing. And so and this is a great story. I go in and I schedule my, first of all, I told her, I was like, I need to look at the classes then, because I thought I was done. And I go in and I'm like, these are the 4 classes I want. She's like, well, what about the rest of classes? And we had 7 classes first semester, 7 classes second semester, right? I said, I don't know. I got to come back to you because I wasn't prepared. And then I never went back to her. So my senior year, I had 2 classes first semester and 2 classes second semester.
Jesus
I
Christ.
just never went back, never talked to her. And so I would come to school first hour, lift weights, even though I didn't have weight training first hour. Just come to school first hour and lift weights. And then second and third hour, I go to these ridiculous classes. I took creative writing, and then I took my typing class. And then after third hour, I had lunch, and I would just go home.
That was a good one.
Nobody checked. This is oh man, like, because we're talking about transitioning out of.
Oh, nobody gave a shit. You can.
Oh, dude, they just didn't, right? Like that time period. Now, oh god, everybody.
No, yeah, and that's a good thing. I'm so glad that
it's
exists.
a good thing. Yeah, like
the
I
world
should
we
not
live
have
in.
slipped
You
through the
know,
cracks during football season. I get out at noon. I go get everybody lunch. Right. People give me tons of cash, and I go to the store, bring them back from, and then I go down to the football field and nap from noon until 3 when football practice started.
dude. God, I used to love getting out of class so easily. It's just like, I knew in Spanish, it was like, because I had no 8th period. 99, I was junior, but my senior year, I like had no period or whatever. So like, I think Spanish was like right next to the door, and I'd walk in, check in, and then walk out.
Just walk back out. Like, that's it. Kids now, they just don't know how amazingly easy it was to just
die.
Well, just do whatever you wanted, because nobody examined this stuff. Nobody followed it. Nobody, like, I skipped. God, in high school, I sat down and figured out the number, and I have no idea anymore. But I got to imagine, in 4 years of high school, I bet you I skipped 200 days. Easy.
Not bad.
And I mean, easy. It's like without even stopping to think about it. Like,
I wasn't a big skipper. I liked going to school, so I liked hanging out there. But like, I would skip out and go to 2 places.
All I want to do, I'd go skateboard, I'd hang out with my friends, hang out with chicks. Like,
but they were all at school, so like that's where I would go. You know, like that. I was like,
no, we'd all skip together, man. Like, you just walk out the back door, and nobody knew.
All right, but here's the thing: I didn't go to school in my town. and it was like a good distance. Like we had to take a bus for like a good 35 minutes to get to my school.
That's a
So,
big difference.
So
I mean,
like you're in a town, you know, you got to be close to school to get on that bus to go home. You're not,
you got to get home. I mean, I just walked. I mean, I lived 3 miles south of school, so like I'd skip, and then before I had a car. Oh God, once I had a car, it was like game over. But
Dude, I'll tell you, this is a funny story, Scott. So I skipped college class, and it was the worst thing. Here's the thing. So I went to community college because I didn't apply to anywhere. I didn't know. I was getting out of college, and I was just like, not there was no direction. I kind of just wanted to go like fucking experience for a year. I just done everything nuns have been telling me for 12 years. I wanted to
welcome to Catholicism.
Gonna go see life a little bit. And but my parents are hard pressed on it. You're gonna go to the community college. It's like, fine. I go. I remember I just didn't show up to class one day because I was like, I don't want to go. I went back, saw that, and like because you have that thing, especially going to a Catholic school, you go up to the teacher, hey, I'm really sorry, I missed class. She's like, this is college. If you don't want to come, I don't care. And I said, cool. I never went back, and I do not regret. I do have a college degree, but I finally went to a college I wanted to go to at 24. But I love being able to take that time and experience a bunch of shit.
Are we up against it for our film in the Discord?
Yes, guys, at 10 p.m. tonight, we are showing on the Discord Roadhouse. I always said to Tim that if when I do my first movie watch, you guys have done a bunch and it's been amazing, but when I do mine, it's going to be Roadhouse. So that's why I went with it, and it's going to lead in, guys, so to Sturd-O-Vision. It's going to be playing here. It's going to be playing over on Harvard Star Sturdy. Make sure you give them a like, subscribe. We're teamed up really well. A whole bunch of us. Worst Damn Gamer Ever. Everybody. Three Geeks Podcast.
Chris, love you, buddy.
Everything. Stories from a Bar, which I think you love, Popcorn and Pints, the whole nine. The whole crew. So make sure at midnight he's going to have an interview tonight with the filmmaker of a movie called The Mummy Murders. Mummy, not Mommy. And I'm very excited. He's actually going to be on my show in a couple of weeks, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah, so guys, we're going to take off. Head over to the Discord. If you go down to the link tree in the description, the Discord's right there. Join up, hang out, have fun, watch Roadhouse, and let's kick some butt.
Yeah, Snob Society.
I'm so freaking glad that MMEMM. MasterShake's moderately entertaining mixology minutes is back again for season 3. And the Outcasts
next Friday for Founders. Next Friday for Founders, and I haven't decided the cocktail yet, but I think I want it to be Star Trek themed. Maybe it's going to be a take on Romulan Ale. Maybe.
Actually, you know what? I'm glad you said that. I do want to point out too. Over on Popcorn and Pints, they've brought me on as a guest for the next 13
You are a Star. I'm not a Star Trek expert. You are.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say expert. I probably. I don't know. I wouldn't. Casey was an expert. He knew everything. Yeah. So we are doing every movie. They have this thing called Franchise Face Off, where you watch they were watching the motion picture versus Phantom Menace, then Wrath of Khan, and we did Attack of the Clones this Saturday 9 p.m. on Popcorn and Pints, and it will be here on the Scene Snobs as well. We're doing Revenge of the Sith versus Search for Spock. It's going to be a great time. Make sure you join in for that. Also, all new episode of Warp Factor Fiction out, our Star Trek rewatch podcast.
For sure.
And then just follow for more and subscribe, hit that bell so you know what's coming out.
Hang out with us. We love it. Keep tuning in. Next week, Founders and a Star Trek cocktail. Tomorrow, Betting Bros at 1. Tell you how to make some money. Yeah.
Love it.
Hanging out with you guys.
Revenge is the best Star Wars. I might have to argue that, but I have to go start a movie.
We can't do it, Mick. We can't do it. We got to go.
Empire Strikes Back. Take care, everybody. We love ya.
Take it easy.